Hello and welcome to Relatively Crafty, a knitting podcast. I'm your host, Christy. I come to you from the Denver area of Colorado, where I live with my husband, Ron, our two daughters, Tatum and Delaney, our tuxedo kitty, Lilu, and our Podengo puppy, Sophie. Welcome. If you are looking for me on Ravelry, I am Cristi-Lael, and on Instagram, I'm Cristi-Lael without the dash. So this is a knitting podcast. The eagle-eyed among you might notice a few things different about me. I got a haircut. I cut it all off, and like all of it. It's all gone, and I love it. I love it so much. And I also got new glasses. I got glasses and contacts. So in the future, you may see me glass-free. And then you may see me in these. I broke down and finally got bifocals. I accepted the fact that I am old enough to need those, and I really like them. It's making a huge difference in how well I see. So, as I said, this is a knitting podcast. I have a plethora of finished objects to show you guys, and that's one of the reasons why I'm podcasting today, because I have so many finished socks and I want to be able to pass them out to the people that they belong to, but I can't let anybody wear them until they've been podcast about. And before you start thinking that I am an incredible sock knitter, all but one of these socks, all but one pair of these socks were cranked by Michelle, who is Aptly Juice on Ravelry, has an Etsy shop, and I have been hiring her to crank me tubes, but she told me, as I had, like 8 or 9 tubes, she said I wasn't allowed to order any more tubes until I started making them into socks, and so I did, and kind of the heel-toe cuff bug hit me, and that's all I've been doing for the past week and a half, is putting toes and heels and cuffs into tubes to make socks. Okay, so let's talk about my first finished object, which actually isn't socks. It is my October Hippo of the month, Hippo for the holidays hat. I've been making a knitted double-brimmed hat for out of Lolo Did It's yarns. Each month this year, she has extended her knit along to include the Yeti Goes To yarn themed line, I guess, and so I have either made the hat out of a Hippo for the holidays or a Yeti Goes To. This month's, or October's, I should say, because we're now in November. This is November 3rd, I believe. October's hat was knit out of Hippo for Summer 2019. That's what it is. And here it is. Hippo for Summer 2019. So I've been holding these double with some Rowan Kid Silk Haze mohair, which gives it just a lovely halo, makes it nice and soft and extra warm, and yeah, I've really been enjoying knitting these. They go quick, and the recipe that I've been using is real easy. It is not a pattern. This is something that I just came up with out of my brain, but I do have it listed on, I think, all of my project pages for the hats. They're all labeled Hippo / Yeti hat number whatever, and basically I'm knitting it on the brim on a 5, 96 stitches, 2x2 rib. I knit for 40 rows, and then I fold it over and knit it together so that it's double brimmed, and then I increase up to 100 stitches and up to a US 7 needle, and then I knit until 7 inches from the bottom of the brim to the top of the hat, and then I start decreasing, and it's just a very simple knit 8, knit 2 together, decrease, knit a plain row, and then knit 7, knit 2 together, and then knit a plain row until I have no stitches, well, until I have like 10 stitches left, and then I put the thing through the center. And yeah, so that is the 10th hat. I have 2 more left to knit, and then I will be done with the Lolo Did It knit along. I really think this will be the last year that I do it. I've done it 3 years in a row, and while I have enjoyed it every single year, I think it's time to maybe not do it in 2020. But I reserve the right to change my mind at any time, because Lauren tends to come up with neat things to include in her knit-alongs, and then when I was certain that I wasn't going to do it this year, and then she came up with something that made me want to do it, and so yeah. So anyway, so that is finished. Number 10, I have 2 more. Next, I have all of the socks FOs. I will start first with the first pair that I finished, which is the pair that I actually knit myself. You guys have seen part of these because I had them started in my last podcast, and that is this pair. This is, I think, pair number 6 or 7 of my holiday socks. I plan on knitting 31 pairs of socks that are Christmas themed, which I will then wear every day of December every year. Not this December. I keep having to tell people that not this December, because I won't have them done in time, but next December for sure. So I knit these with my normal stripy sock recipe. I did a Turkish toe cast on. This is a true afterthought heel. I did 1x1 ribbing and Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. This yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners in the Hollyberry colorway. And yeah, I really liked how they turned out. And the yarn is rustic, just FYI, but I think it's going to be fine for socks. It's maybe not something that I would wear as a cowl, but definitely on my feet. And I really loved the way this colorway turned out. So that is a pair of socks that I knit completely by hand, finished. Everything else you see from now on is going to be ones that were cranked, and then I just added heels, toes, and cuffs on some of them. So let's get into that. Okay, first pair that I finished. This is actually, I was supposed to wait and show this to you when I got it, because I just received these like a week ago from Michelle, and that was when she said I wasn't allowed to order any more tubes until I had made some into socks, and I was so in love with this colorway that I went ahead and did these ones first, even though I hadn't had a chance to show you guys the tube. But the tube looks just like the socks does, except for it didn't have heels and toes, so there you go. But these were awesome because she did the ribbing on them for me on her circular sock machine. And guys, it's nice. It's got a nice stretch to it, so it's not restrictive in any way. I know that's a common problem for sock knitters. They make their cast on too tight or their bind off too tight, depending on which way they do their socks, and then if the socks are high enough, then they're just too snug. But whatever she does is perfect. It's got lots and lots of stretch. And here are the finished socks. Are those not gorgeous? So in love with this colorway. This is MJ Yarns. The colorway is called Fruit Juice, and it is something that I picked up at the first August that I was here, so I think August 2017, here in Colorado. I went on the yarn crawl, and I made sure to hit every single yarn shop. There were 17 involved in the yarn crawl that year, and I went to every single one of them and bought something from all of them. And so this is one of the skeins that I got during that yarn crawl, and I've always loved it in the skein. I also picked up these minis to go with it. It's out of the same yarn. I think that this teal is Ether, and this chartreuse is called Glowing Eel. But they were just minis that went really well with the fruit juice, and so so yeah, I picked them up with the intention of using them to make heels and toes on the socks that I made. And the nice thing about having somebody with a circular sock machine crank out tubes for you is that the entire skein gets knit up and you can then do whatever you want with it. I don't know about you, but when I finish a pair of socks, out of one yarn, when I finish a pair of socks out of a skein of yarn, I don't often want to go right ahead and knit, a second pair of socks out of that yarn, even though I have got a lot left over. I normally, if I knit using just that yarn, I think a pair of socks is like 60 grams. So if I use a contrasting color for the heels and toes, then I'm using, and cuffs possibly, then I'm using maybe half the skein. That gives me a whole other half skein with which to make a second pair of socks. But I don't often want to knit with that yarn again for a while. And so it just kind of sits, and then maybe it gets used up eventually down the road, maybe not. But when Michelle cranks out these tubes for me, I have 100 grams of already knit, so all I'm doing is putting in heels and toes and cuffs, and I don't mind doing one right after the other. So I finished this pair of socks and went right in to make the second pair. And I only got shorties. Out of this set. And I think it's because this was a little bit thicker yarn. So while it was still 100 grams, it didn't have quite as much yardage. It was kind of a heavy fingering. But it's fine because this pair of shorties is for Delaney. I had some leftover minis from Lolo Did It. When I was doing the Hippo for the Holiday socks, I bought just a bunch of her semi-solid little Lolos, which are her 20-gram minis, and I just have been picking through them and using them for these socks. So the mini is a little bit thinner than the main yarn, but it's fine. And I actually kind of wish that I had used this color for my socks, because I really like how this, and I'm sorry, I do not remember what this Lolo colorway was, but I love how it complements the fruit juice for MJ yarns. But I did the same thing. I'm basically, if I can, I will post some pictures. Actually, you know what, I won't, because I have one that's partially done. When I get to whips, I'll show you how I'm doing these. But yeah, I'm just knitting. I'm basically knitting the heels just like a true afterthought heel, and the toes are often at the end of I'm doing the toes first at the end of the tube, so I'm just knitting them like I would a regular toe. Yeah, just really, really simple. And then of course, because I didn't have enough, yes, I shouldn't say I didn't have enough. I had enough. If I wanted to put in a contrasting cuff, I could have knit a cuff and made these, mid-length socks, but Delaney really likes her socks kind of on the shorty side. The Rose City rollers work well for her. She folds the tall socks down anyway, so there's no point in putting in the effort of doing all the ribbing and weaving in extra ends when she's just going to roll them down anyway. So these are for Delaney. I actually have a couple of pairs in here. Maybe I don't. I thought I did. No, I guess that was the only... No, I've got 2 pairs in here for Delaney, which makes her happy. She's one of the reasons why I'm podcasting today, because she's excited to get her new socks, especially now that it is cold. We're wearing socks, wearing hand knit socks every day, and we're wearing them all day long. Another pair that I managed to get 2 pairs, another tube that I managed to get 2 pairs out of. I'll put just one of each onto my blockers so that you don't have to, that the other sock looks exactly the same as the first, so so this yarn is Giddy Knits in Giddy Yarns. Gosh, I get that mixed up all the time. Her podcast is called Giddy Knits. Her yarn is Giddy Yarns. And, or I might have that backwards. I don't know. I have a tag somewhere. Giddy Yarns. Her yarn is called Giddy Yarns. So, like before, I got 2 pairs. I did do a contrasting yarn for each cuff, and these are both leftover Lolo Did It little Lolos. Mom, this pair is for Mom, and oh, I forgot to say, this is Easter Haze. Easter Haze is the colorway. And so Mom requested the hot pink, I think it's called Material Girl, this colorway, but I didn't have enough to do heels, toes, and cuffs on both socks, so I did the heels and toes on both socks, and then picked out another purple that I had to do the cuff. And none of it matches the exact color in the skein, but whatever, I think it looks fine. And then for mine, I don't think this is a little Lolo. I think this is something else because it's got some white spots in it, and Lauren at Lolo Did It doesn't normally have white spots, but I don't remember where this purple mini came from. But I had a full 20 grams, so I was able to do the entire heels, toes, and cuffs in it for my socks. So, so yeah. And I just did 12 rows on the ribbing, 1 by 1 ribbing, and then I bound off with Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. So that is the next 2 pairs. And I used up basically all of the 100 grams with these 2 pairs of socks. So I'm not having any waste either. I did have, just a couple of grams left over. So it works out really nicely. And then I have 3 pairs of single socks that don't have a second sock knit out of them yet. This first pair, the tube that I got was not the full 100 grams. If you recall, the rest of it, Michelle had made into a pair of shorty socks for me, which she used her machine to put the tab in, and she just as an awesome gift, she made them for me. I love them. I wear them regularly, and so she just cranked the rest of the skein for me. So it was about a half a skein, maybe a little bit less, and I used it to make this pair of socks for Delaney. So again, shorties. I did post on Instagram the kind of work in progress on this, pictures of this tube while it was in progress. This is a little Lolo. I think this actually was some Knitterly Things Vesper sock. One of the club colorways that I had gotten came with a black mini, so I had some left over of that, and it complements this yarn really well. This is Andre Sue Knits in her colorway Sugar Skulls, which is just a really nice colorway. I really like how it turned out on both the socks that I wear and the socks that Delaney will wear. And Delaney never cares about matching heels and toes. I could have used whatever color and she would have been fine with it. She just likes hand knit socks, and that's really, it's the best way to have a kid if you're a knitter. Okay, so 2 more pairs of socks. I hope this isn't terribly boring for you guys, but the knitter's heart knits what it wants to knit, right? So this is what has been exciting for me lately. And so this is what I've been making. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to run out of tubes eventually. Actually, sooner rather than later, honestly, because I only have, I think, three left. So, of course, I'm going to order more. So this pair here, I love, 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 love this colorway, and I love how these, the contrasting heels and toes worked with this. But I will say that this skein was compromised. What did I do with all of this yarn is Molly Girl in her Bouncer line, and the colorway is called Can You Tell Me How to Get to Sesame Street? And Michelle, bless her heart, she had such a hard time winding this. It kept breaking. This is one of the skeins, back when I was swapping, I used to be in a bunch of swap groups on Ravelry, and I would swap yarn back and forth, and unfortunately, one of the hazards that you can run into with swapping yarn with people is that you can get compromised yarn that has been cut in the skein, an accident. Maybe nobody even knew about it, but it's happened. Yarn that might have been attacked by some critters that have cut a couple of, eaten through a couple of strands. It kind of happens, and you never really know it's happening. I mean, unless you go through and really carefully examine all of your yarn. When it comes in, you don't always know that it's happened until you go to wind that yarn and it starts breaking apart, or in the case of Michelle, you go to crank it and it starts breaking apart. So she had a devil of a time. This is the largest piece I made this pair of socks for myself out of, and you see it wasn't enough to make a full pair of socks, just enough to make some shorties, but I do love how it looks with the heels and toes. This is some Volmisa that I had in a mini, and the green is just beautiful for this complement. I still have this piece that she was able to crank, and I'm hoping to turn it into a pair of socks, a pair of shorty socks for Delaney. You see she got this far, and then the yarn broke again, and then she got this far, and the yarn broke again, and she kind of just, we kind of agreed that it was time to just say goodbye and let it go. And then I have this much left over. I don't know what kind of condition this is in, but you can see, maybe you can see how it just, like, the strands have just been gnawed by something. Not something here in my stash, because I don't have any problems with any of my other yarn. This is something that it came to me like this, and because I had it in my stash for years, I think I got this in maybe 2015, so it was just sitting already compromised in my stash for a long time. But it's just kind of one of those things that happens, and I'm not upset about it. I got a pair of socks out of it, and that's all that I really wanted. If I get a second pair, that'll be great, but if I don't, that's fine too. And Michelle was awesome to put so much time and effort into it. She really tried to crank the whole thing, and I felt so bad for her, because she was texting me, and I'm so sorry, I don't know what to do, I don't know why this is happening, and I guess she was maybe worried that I was going to get upset, and I would not have gotten upset with her, because it's not her fault. It's just the way it happens. It's really nobody's fault. It's entirely possible that the person I swapped with, and I don't even remember who it was that yarn came from, it's entirely possible that they had no idea that it was compromised. They could have gotten it from somebody else, and it was already compromised. I mean, that's kind of something that happens with yarn swaps, swap groups and whatnot. A yarn can spend only a month in somebody's house and then get swapped to another house, and then to another house, and then to another house. Having lived in Southern California and Colorado, it is dry, and so we don't have a lot of problems with yarn-eating critters. So I don't have that issue here, but there's a lot of places in the United States where there are yarn-eating critters, and it kind of happens. So it's just the way it goes. Okay, I have one more pair of finished socks, and this is also a single pair, because I have the second pair in the process, and that's actually the ones that I can show you kind of how I'm going through this process, kind of enlighten some of you if you're curious on how you take a tube and turn it into a pair of socks. So here it is. Aren't those bright and awesome? This is Rock and String Creations in her Jitterbug line, or Jitterbug line. That's not right. base, in her Jitterbug base. The colorway is Good Vibrations. I like Rock and String Creations. I believe that she is a Colorado native. And, no, I don't know that. No, she's in Carlisle, Kentucky. Never mind. Just cut that all out. I absolutely love Rock and String Creations. They're great at dyeing stripies. I love these colors. And Michelle showed me when she sent me a video when she was winding these glow in a black light. So such cool socks, so bright and happy. I absolutely love them. I use some little Lolos. I think this is Troll Hair and this is Batteries Not Included. Yeah, they aren't exactly matching, but the Troll Hair is pretty darn close to this orange. And I thought the Batteries Not Included just went fine. And so that is another pair of socks that will be for me. Oh, and I did the ribbing on these. So basically what I did is I knit the toe and then did the afterthought heel, and then I decided where I wanted how high I wanted the socks to be. I put my needles in here and then cut up here and then ripped back to where my needles were, and then knit one by one ribbing. And you can see the ribbing is a little wonky right now because the yarn had already been crinkly from when it was knit into a tube, but that will rectify itself as soon as they get washed, and it's not a problem. But I will say that it was super nice and easy to take the pair that Michelle had already done the ribbing on and just add toes and heels. That just went so much faster. So I would definitely, I've told Michelle I'm definitely willing to pay a little extra in the future to have her do that, because it was very pleasant. So that is 8 completed pair of socks. I would like to have been able to knit 8 pairs of socks in the past month since our last podcast, completely on my own, but I've got no complaints about having done them from a sock machine. There's no shame in that whatsoever. Okay, so what have I got left? For the sock machine tubes, I've got this one. This one's actually a new one. You guys haven't seen this one before. This came with that with the MJ yarns, the fruit juice. This came and what? Oh, and this came at the same time. So this is going to be a pair that I'm going to be making here pretty soon. I've got those left, and then I've got the Lolo Did It in LA Lady still to do, and then the last tube I have is Creative Obsession in the Spellbound, and I've kind of been saving this one because I love it so much still in the tube. It's just such a beautiful colorway. And I've kind of been going back and forth about whether or not I want to put purple as the toes and heels, because this is a purple, or if I want to do Blazing Sevens, which is my favorite Lolo Did It solid, which also goes really well. But I'm going to make it into 2 pairs of socks, so maybe I'll just do both. And then, as I mentioned, I have the second bit of the Jitterbug. So I basically ended up with this much left over, this amount of tube left over, which is perfect for a pair of shorty socks for Delaney. So to kind of show you what I do with a tube, I have already put the toes in. I put a toe in on either end. So I basically just put my needles in at the end, and on most of them, on either end, I've got the waste yarn that Michelle has used to transfer it from the skein to to get it off of the CSM or to start it on the CSM. And so I basically just thread my needles in where the main yarn starts, and then I knit a wedge toe. And with these smaller pieces, it's perfect because I can kind of just make it one little monster. Some of them, like when I did the larger socks, I did one full sock and then did the second full sock. But because this is just one small piece, I'm basically working from the outside in. So I've got this toe done, and then on the other side, I've got that toe done. And this is where Delaney not caring about matching works out really well in my favor, because these are just little leftovers. I basically need 3 grams of sock yarn to make a heel or a toe or a cuff, and so I'm just using leftover bits to pull these out. And then you can see here I've measured and put in the needles exactly where I need them to be for the heels. So this is 1 foot. Once I get the heel in, that'll be the full foot, and then this will be where the second heel is for the second foot. And so I'll have this much space in between the 2 needles, or the 2 socks rather. So I will just basically find the middle point right somewhere around there, and I will thread the needles in on either side and cut and unravel, and then I will do a rolled cuff, basically just bind off loosely so that it'll make a shorty sock rolled cuff like that. And that's it. That'll be a pair of socks done. Super easy. And you can do that with the larger tubes. You just have a longer space in between where one toe starts and where the other one does. It works out really well for variegated yarns because it doesn't matter. These socks will be opposite because, as you see, they're both starting on the green, but they're not going the same direction. So the colors will be reversed, which is totally fine because Delaney doesn't care. She just wants to wear socks. So yeah, that is what I've got going forward with socks. So I've got 3 full tubes and then enough to make 2 pairs of shorties for Delaney, and then I will be out of tubes and I will need to buy more. It's nice to have a dealer, a sock tube dealer in Michelle, where I can easily just purchase more from her. And her turnaround is fantastic. Within a couple of days of getting my yarn, she's got them cranked and shipped back to me. And they're always beautiful, and makes me very excited to make more socks. Okay, because the last week and a half, I've only been working on those, I don't have a lot of progress done on other things. But I do have a pair of socks that I'm knitting completely by hand. And that is my next pair of Christmas socks. These are the ones I take them to work, and I work on them during lunch, or if we have a break or whatever. So they only get a little bit worked on each day, but it's still something. I have the first sock almost done. It doesn't have a heel, but that is right here. Right here is where the heel will go. And I have this, so these are here so that I know where the beginning and the end of the row is. I know that I need to start here and stop here. And then this little guy is right here, so that I know that I want to put the heel on this side of the sock instead of this side of the sock, just in case you're wondering. So this is done with my recipe, Turkish toe cast on, toe up. I'm going to do an afterthought heel, obviously, 1x1 ribbing, Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I will put in the heel, but I wanted to get the second sock mostly knit, or to this point, before I did that. And I've got it started, but it's just a little bit further than the toe, not far enough to really call much of anything. This yarn is White Birch Fiber Arts, who is one of my favorite stripey dyers. There's like 6 maybe stripey dyers that I know. I love their base. I love their the skills that they use to dye their yarn. I love the colors they go with, and I know that it is a safe bet that if I buy from them, I'm going to be pleased with the finished socks. Unfortunately, not all yarn bases are equal, and there have been times when I have gotten a skein of yarn that is a gorgeous colorway, but the base has been not something that I've enjoyed working with, or it's something that that hasn't lasted very long. There was a really great dyer who did stripes back when stripes were still new, and she's still a dyer, and her dyeing is amazing. She's very, very talented. But back in the day, and this was at least 7 years ago, she used Knit Picks Bear for her yarn base, and it's not quality sock yarn. I am certain that she does not use that yarn anymore. But this was back when she was still new to dyeing, and in fact, it was when there wasn't a whole lot of indie dyers out there. It was still kind of a new thing, maybe closer to 10 years ago. Anyway, it was not quality sock yarn. So the pair of socks that I made, even though they were dyed expertly, they did not last because it was substandard yarn. So I kind of like to find dyers that use really good yarn and go with that. Although I will say that it's more common for them to do that now because there are so many more indie dyers out there and so many more resources for indie dyers to know where to start, instead of just kind of fumbling through. There's YouTube videos and tutorials and all kinds of things to show you how to dye really well and what kind of products to use. So anyway, this is a pair of socks in process, and yeah, they'll be finished soon. I had to tell you a story. My ball winder broke. It's still like cranked, but the cakes that it was making were terrible. They got out of alignment, and I couldn't fix it, and I tried to fix it, and I was just making it worse, really. And so I always wind the cake in between each sock because I have a little bit of OCD, and I need the cakes to be fresh when I start a new sock, and I couldn't wind a cake this time, so I had to wind this by hand. And I have a lot of respect for those stripey dyers who wind their everlasting gobstoppers by hand, because this is a pain in the butt. I don't want to do it anymore. I did buy a new ball winder, actually, and I went out and got a quality one. Not saying that the one that I had before was bad, because it wasn't, and it lasted me for quite a while, 4 or 5 years at least, and I've definitely got my money's worth. I did buy a new one. This is Stanwood Needle Crafts, and this is like heavy duty. It's the normal ones are meant to take a 4-ounce skein. This is meant to take a 10-ounce skein. It's heavy duty. So I haven't set it up yet. I'm trying to find a perfect spot for it. Where I had the other one, it was not the perfect spot, which is one of the reasons why it got broken. So I'm looking forward to setting this up and using it, because I haven't used it yet. I've only had it for a couple of days, and I haven't needed to wind any yarn. So soon. Did I get off on a tangent? No, I was talking about those socks. Couple other things. I don't know if I've made any progress since the last time we talked about this, but this is the cowl that I've been knitting for my uncle. I should have been finished with this ages ago, but I got distracted, and so this is the Opportunity Crossed cowl, and I'm knitting it out of Barocco, no, Encore, Plymouth Encore tweed. And I just need, I'm over halfway done. I just need to like sit down and work on it, but I haven't wanted to lately, and it's a Christmas gift, so I've got some time. And then the last thing that is on the needles is actually my scrappy Hippo sweater, which I've had on the needles forever and I thought was never going to grow. I finally bound off the body. So I have all of this, and there is the ribbing. Wait till I'm done. And so it is bound off. It's a little bit, what's the word, wrinkly because it's been in a bag. I do have a picture of me wearing it. We took it with us to Utah. We went to Utah a couple of weeks ago, and I finished it on the way to the hotel, and was able to take a picture in the hotel with it on. So the body is done. I do have to do the sleeves. I have one started, but I haven't made very much progress, and I have the other one to do. But the end is in sight, and we have had some true winter weather lately. We had 3 days of snow this last week. In fact, I ended up having to work from home on Tuesday and Wednesday because the roads were so bad. Thankfully, it was clear by Halloween on Thursday, so everybody was able to go out and do our holiday stuff. But yeah, I now could really use this sweater. And then lastly, I have to do my November Hippo hat, and I haven't got that started yet, but I do have the yarn picked out. This is Lolo did it in her Simple DK in Hippo for Halloween. And yeah, I just thought it looked good. I like the colors, and so I'm going to get that one started here before too long because I gotta get it done before the end of the month. And guys, that's it. There's not a lot been going on with life, so I'm not really going to talk much about that, and I don't have any yarn to show you because I haven't bought any recently. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Hopefully I can get this edited today, and I can get it up tonight. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Happy knitting. Bye.